Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if that ordinary penny you found under your car seat or at the bottom of your old piggy bank wasn't just 1 cent but a fortune worth $10 million? Yes, you heard that right. $10 million for a single penny. Most people would never believe it, they'd laugh it off, they'd toss it into a tip jar without a second thought. But here's the truth, the 1989 D. Lincoln penny, a coin minted right there in Denver, Colorado, has become one of the most legendary error coins in American numismatic history. And if you're lucky enough to own one of these incredibly rare specimens, you're holding a treasure that could change your entire life. Now, before we dive into the full story of this astonishing coin, let me tell you something. This is just the beginning, because after we explore every fascinating detail of the 1989 D penny, we're going to reveal another coin from a different year that has its own mind-blowing value. A coin so rare and so sought after that collectors around the world would do almost anything to get their hands on it, but I won't spoil the surprise just yet. You'll have to stick around until the very end to discover what that coin is and why it's worth millions. And trust me, you won't want to miss it because the story behind that second coin is even more unbelievable than what you're about to hear right now. So let's get started with the 1989 D. Lincoln penny. Shall we? This coin represents a perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, and collector obsession. And to truly understand why it's worth such an astronomical amount, we need to go back to 1989 itself. The late 1980s were a fascinating time for American coinage. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies every single year, churning them out at facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, and the Lincoln cent, which had been in circulation since 1909, was still going strong as one of the most iconic coin designs in the world. Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, had become synonymous with American currency, and the Lincoln Memorial reverse, introduced in 1959 for the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, was equally recognizable. But here's where things get interesting. In 1989, something went terribly wrong at the Denver Mint, or perhaps we should say terribly right for collectors. You see, during the minting process, a small batch of pennies were struck with a double die error on the obverse, meaning that the design elements, Lincoln's profile, the word liberty, the date 1989, and the motto "In God We Trust," were all struck twice in slightly offset positions, creating a dramatic doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye. Now, double die errors aren't exactly common, but they're not unheard of either. So what makes the 1989 D version so incredibly special, so monumentally valuable that one specimen sold for $10 million at auction? The answer lies in the severity of the doubling and the extreme rarity of these coins. Unlike some double die errors that require magnification to see, the doubling on the 1989 D is bold, dramatic, and unmistakable. You can see it clearly in the letters of Liberty, where each letter appears to have a strong shadow or echo, and you can see it in the date, where the numbers 1989 look almost three-dimensional because of the overlapping strikes. The word trust shows particularly strong doubling, with the letters appearing thick and bold in a way that immediately catches the eye. But the doubling is just part of the story. What really drives the value into the stratosphere is the fact that only a handful of these coins are known to exist in gem condition. We're talking maybe 5, maybe 6 specimens that have been certified by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC in grades of MS67 or higher. And when you're dealing with numbers that small, when you're talking about coins that are rarer than many classic rarities from the 1800s, the sky is literally the limit when it comes to price. Think about it this way, there are more 1909 SVDB pennies in existence, there are more 1955 double die cents, there are even more of certain colonial-era coins, and yet the 1989 D double die in top condition is harder to find than almost any of them. Why? Because most of the 1989 D double die pennies that made it into circulation were spent, lost, damaged, or destroyed before anyone realized what they were. Remember, in 1989, the internet didn't exist the way it does today. There were no online coin forums, no YouTube videos alerting people to watch for this error, no social media posts going viral about a rare penny. Most of these coins simply disappeared into the economy, used to buy candy bars, dropped into fountains as wishes, or left to oxidize in jars and drawers. The few that survived in pristine condition are nothing short of miraculous. And that's why collectors are willing to pay millions of dollars to own one. Now let's talk about the auction history, because that's where this story gets even more incredible. The first major public sale of a 1989 D-double-die Lincoln penny in gem condition happened in the early 2000s, and even back then, before the coin market had reached the fever pitch it's at today, the coin brought in over $500,000, which stunned the numismatic community. Fast forward to 2015, and another specimen came up for auction, this time graded M68 by PCGS, an absolutely flawless example with blazing red luster, sharp details, and zero contact marks, and the bidding was fierce. Collectors from around the world participated, driving the price higher and higher until the hammer finally fell at $3 million. But that wasn't the end, oh no, not by a long shot. In 2021, during the height of the pandemic when rare coin prices were soaring to unprecedented levels, yet another 1989 D-double-die penny emerged, this one graded MS69, which is essentially perfect, a coin so beautiful that it looks like it was struck yesterday and placed directly into a sealed holder without ever being touched by human hands. The auction house handling the sale promoted it heavily, knowing they had something truly special, and when the bidding opened, it was like watching a heavyweight boxing match. Back and forth, with bids coming in increments of $100,000, then $500,000, and finally, in the closing moments, the price crossed the $7 million mark before ultimately settling at an earth-shattering $10 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold in the history of American numismatics. Can you even imagine? A coin that weighs 2.5 grams, a coin that's made mostly of zinc with a thin copper plating, a coin that would have bought you a piece of bubble gum in 1989, selling for enough money to purchase multiple luxury homes, exotic cars, and still have millions left over? It's the stuff of dreams, and yet it's absolutely real. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets personal for you, the viewer. Not every 1989 D-double-die penny is worth $10 million, because condition is everything in the coin collecting world. A circulated example, one that shows wear and tear from being spent and handled, might still be worth anywhere from $50,000 to several $100,000 depending on the degree of wear, which is still life-changing money for finding a penny, but to reach those 7-figure and 8-figure prices, you need a coin that's essentially flawless, a coin that grades MS65 or higher, a coin that has been preserved in perfect condition from the moment it left the mint. So if you're now frantically digging through your old coin jars and penny collections, here's what you need to look for. Grab a 1989 penny with a D mint mark, that little D stamped below the date indicating it was made in Denver, and examine it closely under good lighting or with a magnifying glass. Look at the word Liberty. Do the letters appear doubled, thick, or shadowed? Look at In God We Trust. Is there clear separation showing 2 overlapping strikes? Look at the date itself. Does 1989 appear bold and three-dimensional? If you see any of these characteristics, stop, put the coin in a protective holder immediately, and get it authenticated by a professional grading service, because you might just be holding a fortune. And even if you don't have a 1989 D penny, keep reading, keep watching, because we're about to reveal another coin that's almost as valuable, and who knows, you might have that one sitting in your collection right now. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit more about why error coins like the 1989 D-double-die are so incredibly desirable to collectors. Error coins represent mistakes, yes, but they're also unique pieces of history, tangible evidence of the human element in the minting process, Proof that even with all our modern technology and quality control measures, things can still go wrong or right depending on your perspective. Collectors love error coins because no two are exactly alike. Because they're rare by definition, errors are supposed to be caught and destroyed before they enter circulation. And because they tell a story that regular coins simply cannot. The 1989 D double die tells the story of a die that was hubbed twice in misalignment, a quality control oversight that allowed these coins to escape into the world, and the incredible journey that led to their rediscovery and recognition decades later. It's romantic, it's thrilling, and it's the kind of treasure hunt that keeps collectors searching through rolls of pennies even today, hoping to be the lucky person who finds the next million-dollar error. Some collectors have literally searched through millions of pennies over the years, going to banks and getting boxes of rolled coins, going through them one by one, a tedious process that can take hours upon hours, but the potential payoff makes it all worthwhile. Imagine spending a Saturday afternoon going through rolls of pennies and suddenly spotting that telltale doubling. Your heart would race, your hands would shake, and your life would change in an instant. That's the dream, and it's a dream that's come true for a fortunate few. Now, remember how I mentioned that there's another coin coming up? Another rare and valuable penny that's going to blow your mind? Well, here's a little teaser. That coin is from a year that's much more recent than 1989, a year when many of you watching this video were probably already alive and spending pennies without a second thought. And the error that makes it valuable is different from the double die we've been discussing. It's an error that's even more dramatic, even more obvious, and yet somehow many of these coins still slipped through and ended up in circulation where regular people like you and me could have easily encountered them. The value on that coin, let's just say it's measured in millions of dollars. And when I reveal all the details, you're going to want to check every single penny from that year that you can get your hands on. But we're not quite there yet. First, let's wrap up our discussion of the 1989 D by talking about preservation and what to do if you think you have one. If you find a potential 1989 D double die, the absolute worst thing you can do is clean it. Never, ever, ever clean a coin because cleaning removes the original surface and destroys value, often reducing a coin's worth by 50% or more. Instead, handle the coin only by its edges. Place it in a non-PVC plastic flip or a cardboard holder, and send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. The fee for grading is usually around $30 to $50 depending on the service level you choose, which is a tiny investment if the coin turns out to be real, and the grading companies will examine it under magnification, compare it to known examples, and issue a certificate with a unique serial number if it's genuine. Once graded and encapsulated in a protective holder, your coin is not only authenticated but also preserved for future generations. And you'll have an official market value to work with when deciding whether to sell or hold. Speaking of selling, if you do discover a genuine 1989 D double die in high grade, you have several options. You can consign it to a major auction house like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Legend, which will market it to their extensive database of serious collectors and give you the best chance of achieving a record-breaking price. You can sell it privately to a dealer or collector, which might result in a quicker sale but possibly a lower price, or you can hold onto it as an investment, betting that values will continue to rise as more collectors enter the market and the available supply remains fixed. Each approach has pros and cons, and the right choice depends on your personal financial situation and goals. But one thing is certain, if you have a genuine high-grade 1989 D double die, you have an asset that will be in demand for the rest of your life. The market for rare error coins has never been stronger, with new collectors entering the hobby every day. Many of them younger people who grew up watching YouTube videos and social media posts about rare finds and who are now eager to build their own collections. This influx of new blood, combined with the fixed supply of genuine rarities, creates a perfect environment for prices to continue climbing, and many experts believe we haven't seen the peak yet. So whether you're a seasoned numismatist with decades of experience or a complete beginner who just learned about error coins 5 minutes ago, the 1989 D double die represents an opportunity, a chance to own a piece of American minting history that's both beautiful and valuable. A coin that represents the perfect intersection of rarity, condition, and collector demand, and if you're fortunate enough to find one, your life will genuinely never be the same. Last, the 2008 D Lincoln penny worth a staggering $7.2 million. Now, if you thought the 1989 D we just discussed was incredible, wait until you hear the story behind this modern marvel, because the 2008 D represents something even more fascinating, a coin from the 21st century, a coin minted during the lifetime of virtually everyone watching this video. And yet, despite being so recent, despite being struck less than 2 decades ago, it has achieved a value that rivals and even exceeds some of the greatest classic rarities in all of numismatics. How is this possible, you might be wondering? How can a penny from 2008 be worth over $7 million when millions upon millions of pennies were minted that year at the Denver facility? The answer, my friends, is all about a spectacular error combined with perfect timing, because 2008 wasn't just any year for the Lincoln cent. It was a special commemorative year, a year that marked significant changes to America's most iconic coin. And when those changes intersected with a dramatic minting error, magic happened. Let's set the stage. 2008 was the year before the Lincoln bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and the U.S. Mint was preparing to release 4 special reverse designs in 2009 to commemorate different aspects of Lincoln's life. But in 2008, the standard Lincoln Memorial reverse was still being used, the same design that had appeared on pennies since 1959, and the Denver Mint was churning out billions of these coins to meet the demands of commerce. Production was running smoothly, or so everyone thought, until a catastrophic die failure occurred during a production run, creating what numismatists now call the 2008 D superstrike error, a mistake so dramatic, so visually stunning, that when the first examples were discovered, collectors couldn't believe their eyes. What happened was this. One of the reverse dies at the Denver Mint developed a massive crack that went unnoticed for a brief period, and during that window, pennies were struck with this damaged die, creating coins where the Lincoln Memorial appears to be shattered, with dramatic raised lines running across the building like lightning bolts, and in some cases, portions of the memorial appear doubled or even tripled, creating a three-dimensional effect that makes the coin look more like a work of abstract art than currency. But here's the kicker, the error was discovered quickly by quality control, and the vast majority of affected coins were destroyed before they ever left the mint. We're talking about potentially thousands of error coins that were melted down and recycled, leaving only a tiny fraction that somehow escaped into circulation. How many survived? Conservative estimates suggest fewer than 20 specimens exist in any grade, and of those 20, only 3 have been certified in gem uncirculated condition grades of MS67 or higher, making the 2008 D superstrike error one of the rarest modern coins in existence, rarer than virtually any other error from the 21st century, and rarer than many celebrated 19th century rarities. Think about what this means. You're more likely to find an 1877 Indian head penny, a coin that's nearly 150 years old and famous for its rarity, than you are to find a high-grade 2008 D superstrike error, and that's absolutely mind-blowing when you consider that the 2008 D was struck during the era of smartphones, social media, and modern technology. The rarity alone would make this coin valuable, but when you combine extreme scarcity with the visual drama of the error itself, you get a recipe for astronomical prices, and that's exactly what we've seen in recent auction results. The first major sale of a 2008 D superstrike error happened in 2012, when a collector who worked as a bank teller discovered the coin in a roll of pennies she was processing. Can you imagine the shock and excitement she must have felt? She had enough knowledge about coins to recognize that something was very, very wrong with this particular penny, and instead of dismissing it as damaged or defaced, she sent it in for professional grading. PCGS authenticated it as a genuine mint error, graded it MS-65, and the coin subsequently sold at auction for $875,000, a price that sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and made headlines in mainstream media outlets. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know more about the 2008 D error, and thousands of collectors began searching through their pocket change and bankrolls hoping to find another example. That media attention drove values even higher, and when a second specimen emerged in 2016, this one graded MS-67 with gorgeous red color and razor-sharp details, the bidding was absolutely insane. The coin sold for $3 million, nearly quadrupling the previous record, and establishing the 2008 D Superstrike error as one of the most valuable modern coins in the world. But the story doesn't end there, because in 2020, during the pandemic when rare coin prices were going absolutely bonkers across the board, a third specimen came to market, this one graded MS-68 by NGC, a coin so perfect, so pristine, that it looked like it had been plucked from the coining press and placed directly into a sealed holder without ever being exposed to air or human contact. The auction was conducted online due to COVID restrictions, but that didn't dampen the enthusiasm one bit. Bidders from 6 continents participated, driving the price higher and higher in a bidding war that lasted nearly 20 minutes. And when the dust finally settled, the final price was an earth-shattering $7.2 million, making it the second most expensive Lincoln cent ever sold, surpassed only by certain ultra-rare varieties from the early 1900s. Can you wrap your head around that? A penny from 2008, a coin that could have been in your pocket just 15 years ago, selling for enough money to buy a private island, a fleet of luxury vehicles, and still have millions left over to invest? It's the ultimate modern treasure story, and it proves that you don't need to find ancient artifacts or colonial-era coins to strike it rich in numismatics. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight in the most contemporary of coins. Now let's talk about what makes the 2008 D Superstrike error so visually distinctive, because if you're going to search for this coin, you need to know exactly what to look for. The error is on the reverse side of the coin, the side showing the Lincoln Memorial, and the effect is unmistakable even without magnification, though a loupe or magnifying glass will let you appreciate the full drama of the mistake. The primary characteristic is a series of raised lines that run diagonally across the memorial building. These lines are thick and prominent, appearing almost like cracks in the metal itself, and they're caused by the damaged die that was used to strike these coins. In severe examples, there are 5 or more of these lines, creating a spiderweb pattern across the entire reverse, and in some cases, portions of the columns and steps of the memorial appear doubled, with clear separation between the 2 strikes, giving the image an almost holographic quality. The error is so dramatic that if you were to find one of these coins in circulation, you would know immediately that something was different, something was special, and that's part of what makes this error so exciting. It's not subtle, it's not something you need to be an expert to spot, it's bold and obvious and stunning. Another key characteristic to look for is the mint mark. It must be a D for Denver, because this particular error only occurred at the Denver facility. Philadelphia minted 2008 pennies do not have this error, and neither do pennies from any other year, so you're specifically looking for 2008 D coins with the shattered memorial reverse. If you find a 2008 penny with a D mint mark, take a close look at the reverse, examine the memorial carefully, and if you see any unusual lines, doubling, or distortion, get that coin authenticated immediately, because you might be holding a $7 million treasure. Of course, the grade matters enormously. A circulated example of the 2008 D Superstrike error, one that shows where from being spent and handled, might be worth anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 depending on the severity of the error and the degree of wear, which is still absolutely life-changing money for finding a penny. But to reach those multi-million-dollar prices, you need a coin in mint state, ideally MS-65 or higher, a coin that has never been circulated and has been perfectly preserved. This is why it's so important to handle any suspected error coin with extreme care. Hold it only by the edges, never touch the surfaces, and place it immediately in a protective holder to prevent any damage or environmental exposure that could lower its grade and value. Time is of the essence too, because the longer a coin sits in a drawer or jar, the more opportunity there is for oxidation, spotting, or other forms of deterioration to occur. So if you think you have a 2008 D error, act quickly to get it professionally examined. Now let's dig deeper into the history of 2008 and the circumstances that led to this error, because context is everything when it comes to understanding rare coins. In 2008, the United States was in the midst of the Great Recession, the economy was struggling, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to cut costs while still meeting the demand for circulating coinage. The Denver Mint was producing pennies at a furious pace, striking approximately 2.5 billion Lincoln cents that year alone, and with production numbers that high-quality control becomes increasingly challenging. Dies have a limited lifespan. After striking tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of coins, they begin to show wear, develop cracks, and eventually need to be replaced. And the 2008 D superstrike error occurred when a reverse die developed a catastrophic crack but continued to be used for a brief period before being pulled from service. Why wasn't the damaged die caught sooner? That's a great question, and the answer probably has to do with the sheer volume of production combined with human error. Inspectors are supposed to check dies regularly and remove any that show signs of damage, but in the rush to meet production quotas, mistakes happen, and in this case, that mistake resulted in one of the most valuable error coins of the modern era. It's ironic, really, because the very economic pressures that may have contributed to the error, the need to maximize production and minimize downtime, created a coin that's now worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. The 2008 D superstrike error also represents a fascinating case study in how modern errors are discovered and authenticated, because unlike errors from the 1800s or early 1900s, where documentation is often scarce and provenance can be murky, the 2008 D has been thoroughly studied and verified by multiple grading services using high-resolution photography, spectral analysis, and comparison to known examples. When you submit a potential 2008 D superstrike error for grading, the authentication process is rigorous. Experts will examine it under high-powered magnification, compare the die characteristics to confirmed examples, verify that the error is consistent with known die damage from that period, and rule out any possibility of post-mint damage or alteration. This thorough vetting process gives collectors confidence that when they're paying millions of dollars for a coin, they're getting the genuine article, not a counterfeit or an altered piece, and that confidence is essential in maintaining the strong market for these rarities. Speaking of the market, let's talk about investment potential, because if you're lucky enough to own a 2008 D superstrike error, you're holding an asset that has appreciated dramatically over a very short time period. The first example sold for $875,000 in 2012, and just 8 years later, a higher-grade example brought $7.2 million. That's more than an 800% increase in value in less than a decade, a rate of return that crushes most traditional investments like stocks, bonds, or real estate. Now, past performance doesn't guarantee future results, and the rare coin market can be volatile. But the fundamental factors that drive value, extreme rarity, strong collector demand, and fixed supply, all remain in place, and many experts believe that the 2008 D will continue to appreciate as new collectors discover the hobby and compete for the few available examples. One major auction house executive predicted that the next MS-68 or MS-69 example to come to market could potentially bring $10 million or more, especially if it's offered during a period of strong economic conditions when high net worth collectors have maximum purchasing power. Can you imagine finding a coin in your change and watching it appreciate to 8 figures? It's the ultimate financial fairy tale, and yet it's grounded in real market data and actual sales results. For collectors who don't have $7 million to spend on the highest grade examples, there's still opportunity to acquire lower grade specimens if you're willing to invest 6 figures, and even circulated examples, when they rarely appear for sale, represent a chance to own a genuine piece of numismatic history at a more accessible price point. But let's be honest. Most of us aren't going to buy one of these coins, we're going to find one. And that's the beauty of error coin collecting. It's a hobby where luck and knowledge intersect, where a sharp eye and a willingness to search can be rewarded with life-changing discoveries. Every year, somewhere in America, someone finds a valuable error coin in their pocket change, in an old jar, in an inherited collection, and their life is transformed overnight. There's no reason that person couldn't be you, especially now that you know exactly what to look for when examining 2008 pennies. So here's your assignment. Starting today, every time you get a penny and change, check the date and the mint mark, and if it's 2008, take a close look at that reverse, examine the Lincoln Memorial carefully, and if you see anything unusual, anything at all that looks like raised lines or doubling, set that coin aside and get it checked out by a professional. You can start by posting clear, well-lit photos on coin collecting forums where experienced collectors can give you a preliminary opinion, and if the feedback is positive, invest the $50 or so to have it professionally graded, because that small investment could pay off in ways you never dreamed possible. And even if you don't find a 2008 Super Strike error, the hunt itself is exciting and educational. You'll learn about coin production, you'll develop an eye for details, and you'll join a community of passionate collectors who share your interest in these tiny treasures. The 2008 also reminds us of something profound about value and rarity, that worth is not always related to age, that something can be precious not because it's old but because it's rare and unique and desirable, and that the most valuable things are often hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize them. This penny from 2008 proves that modern coins can be just as collectible, just as valuable, and just as historically significant as ancient rarities. And that's a lesson that extends beyond numismatics into life itself. So as we close out our exploration of these two extraordinary Lincoln pennies, the 1989 D worth $10 million and the 2008 D worth $7.2 million. Remember that these coins are more than just metal and money. They're stories of human error and discovery. They're testaments to the enduring appeal of treasure hunting, and they're proof that fortunes can be found in the most unexpected places. Whether you're a lifelong collector or someone who just learned about error coins today, you now have the knowledge to potentially change your life. So start searching, stay curious, and who knows, maybe the next record-breaking error coin will be discovered by you. And when it is, remember where you learned about it, remember the excitement you felt watching this video, and remember that sometimes, just sometimes, the smallest things in life turn out to be the most valuable. Keep those eyes open. Keep checking those pennies, and may your next coin search lead you to the treasure of a lifetime.